It takes a lot to run a business these days, but you know this. It takes people, processes, assets, and technology. It takes an intelligent enterprise. From finance to supply chain, from product manufacturing to marketing and sales, around a single focus, the consumer. This is the power of the intelligent enterprise. Connected, integrated, optimized, and delightful to use. And that's where Rizing makes a difference. Thanks for joining our live stream today. We encourage you to leave questions and comments below and be a part of our live discussion. And now, let's welcome our panelists.
Hello and welcome to the NRF 2021 recap with Rizing and SAP. I'm Craig Powers, Managing Editor at Rizing, and with me today I have three panelists to discuss the major trends, ideas, and sessions from retail's big show. As a reminder, bandwidth is stretched with so many working from home. If there's an issue with the stream, hang tight, we'll get it back up as quickly as possible. So grab your drink and let's get started with the panel. First, from SAP, we have Robin Barrett-Wilson. She's an executive advisor for the fashion industry at SAP. Welcome, Robin, and thank you for joining us today. Give us a little background on your career and role at SAP.
Hey, Craig, thanks for having me. Good to see you. So I am an executive advisor with SAP, so I have the great job of working with executives throughout North America in the fashion industry, talking to them about what their goals are, what they're trying to accomplish, and what technology they should be thinking about to meet those goals. I share lots of stories and talk a lot about what is going on in the industry from a trend perspective, which I know is a very big word, and really just try to keep, really what the customer experience should be very top of mind. So
great, Robin. We're really looking forward to your insights today. I appreciate you coming on. Next, I'll bring on Kimberly Sharp. She works for us at Rizing. She's a senior consulting management manager in the consumer industries area. So Kim, nice to have you and good to see you.
Nice to see you as well. Glad to be here.
And again, give us a little bit about your background in retail. I know you've worked with us, but you've also worked on the customer side as well.
Yes, in fact, a majority of my professional career has been in retail in one way or another. And a few years ago, I made the decision to leave industry. But really, it's because I found my passion for unlocking the potential that data has to bring to organizations, enabled to really strong technology, obviously with great partners like SAP. So I am what I self-proclaimed, I guess, retail junkie and data geek.
Excellent. I know data is going to come up quite a bit today as we go through what happened in the last year for retail and what's going to keep it going happen, this next year. And finally, of course, I might get in trouble if I didn't introduce my boss, and that's Sherry Ann Meyer, our corporate communications director at Rizing. Hi, Sherry.
Hi, Craig. Good to see you again.
Yeah. Sherry and I are kind of piggybacking along here with we both were able to attend. Did you enjoy the show, from our communications side, Sherry?
Not as much as I enjoyed being there in person, but some of the content was pretty good.
Yeah, of course. And I'm looking forward to the insights from all of you today. Let's just jump right in. So don't make people wait any longer. So let's talk about sort of the broad topics at the event. I'll start with you, Robin. Kind of what were your overall impressions kind of from the broad trends that you saw?
Sure. So first, Sherry, I'll agree with you. It's nothing like being there in person. I also come from the industry, and so I've been to NRF, I don't know, 20 times maybe, both on both sides, probably like Kim. And so it was a very different feel, and probably not as much running around from place to place, right? So I didn't have feet that hurt. And I probably stayed on my diet a little bit better, right? So I didn't have all that rich food. So, but I missed seeing everybody face to face. It's a nice time to reconnect with people that you haven't seen face to face in a long time. So, but that being said, the overall themes for NRF, I felt, were very people focused. So first and foremost, there were a lot of sessions that were very much people focused, really employees, right? So keeping employees safe and really thinking about what's going on in the environment when you're working with your employees. Innovation, of course, very top of mind, especially around supply chain. And then I would say the last but not least was transparency. So being transparent, talking to consumers and employees about how you're keeping them safe, how you're getting them their orders, when they're open, when your store is open, when it's closed. All those things were very much top of mind for executives as we were, watching different sessions. So.
Thank you, Robin. Yeah, that's I definitely caught that as well. On the innovation side, particularly, we saw some customers. I know Suit Supply and Verizon talked about having to kind of innovate on the fly. They were talking about trying to set up appointments and utilizing the technology they have. From a technology perspective and from an employee safety perspective, kind of the combination of those two, Sherry, I know you had an example of one of our retail customers about how they're doing that as they're trying to keep their employees safe.
Yeah, I think safety has been top of mind for everyone this year, no matter where you are, what you're doing. And at Rizing, we worked with Coty to develop a solution for them that would help them track the risk of their employees. And what we did was we used our Lyra product and worked with them to develop a model where we could combine different aspects of different data. So what was important was not just the data that's in the system, the human resources system, but of course, like Johns Hopkins data that showed where the virus was it's spreading. And in some cases also bringing in more local or regional data where Johns Hopkins didn't go as deep. And really allowing Coty and other employers that adopted this to look at, where were their employees having issues and where were their potential issues to come, and managing that risk and managing their workforce better was really important.
Great. Yeah. And I know, Kim, you also had some thoughts on you were thinking employee focus was a huge trend here.
Yeah, for so long, and maybe I'm a little jaded being a woman, right? We often, I think, as young professionals, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, we were taught to check our emotions at the door. And so this was the year, 2020 was the year of the 180 for me, right? To me, it was about humanizing business. And I think employees have always been a really big focus of retailers because so many of our retail workforce is on the front lines with our customer, right? That's what carries our brand forward, our culture forward for our customers and our engagement. But I think what we saw this year was the need to really lean in to empathy and to lead with compassion. So we heard people talking about expanded sick leave, right? Increased pay, flexible work hours. When you think about, we have workers who are not only trying to work, but also trying to raise families and school children, right? You now have multiple people working at home. There's a lot going on. And so I think the companies who saw the impact on employees really quickly were able to act in a very agile fashion and really elevate and lift up their employees. And I think that engagement is so important. And I think that success factors, although that's not my area of expertise, has a lot of functionality. And I think retailers sometimes have overlooked some of the more engagement-based functionality and success factors. But I really think if there's a prediction around leveraging success factors for our employees, I think we're going to see a lot more enhanced use of the engagement modules within success factors. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
definitely more collaboration, right?
Yes.
Yeah, without a doubt. So I would say, this people-focused theme, the Walmart session as well for the final day, that the president CEO of International, she had some great points, and that leadership, really had to have hope, right? So projecting hope to your employees that, things are going to be okay, and it's okay was a phrase that they embraced, right? So she also talked a lot about, retooling and retraining, which, Kim, to your point, that's something that's very much top of mind. You've got retailers out there who have storefronts that are going to be doing different things moving forward, right? With the increase of the adoption of online shopping, what do these storefronts become? Are they appointment-based, Craig, like we talked about with the session that Suit Supply you mentioned with Suit Supply, or is it going to be a fulfillment area? Especially if you think about using the inventory that are in stores to fulfill orders. So now you've got associates who are doing different things, and they may not be taking care of a customer who's walked in the door, but they're certainly taking care of a customer's order. And they want to be sure that they're doing that in a certain way to make sure that the customer experience is a good one, right? So how do you retrain quickly? How do you make sure that employee is feeling good about their new role or their extended role? And so having those tools in place is going to be really important moving forward.
Yeah, and Robin, I think trust is a big part of that. And I think we heard Walmart talk about that a little bit too. There's been so much emphasis on using the data that's out there, but Walmart came out very clearly in saying that, the customer has to be the North Star, and we have to make sure that, we're using data in a safe and secure way, and that customer feels safe with us using their data, but also with not just with that, but with coming into our store or the pickup or whatever process we have. So I think we saw a different kind of customer service emerge.
Yeah, and I think that really leads to, the adoption that's going on out there in the marketplace. So it's everything real time, right? So it's having the customer data, it's having the transaction data, the inventory data, being able to access all that data at any time to be able to make decisions or pivot on decisions are really important. I know that we have joint customers that we've worked with, and I think it's interesting that even the warehouse club formats, it was all about customers and really making sure that the customer felt good about entering a very large space. Did they have the data to be able to make the decisions for fulfilling orders, for being able to cater to those customers? All those things are, no matter what the retail format is very much important. And all of that data is very much necessary when you're in a time like this and you're starting to pivot and do different things. So,
yeah. Robin, you bring up the warehouse club format. And so NRF Big Show is obviously one of the highlights of the year for retailers and those supporting them. But NRF does great programming throughout this year. And I think they were really adaptive throughout the year. They started a series, Conversations with CEOs. So we can maybe recall that conversation with Chris Baldwin, right, who's the chairman of BJ's. And when he talked about technology at the core and the center of being able to meet these new and maybe unforeseen demands against the backdrop of the pandemic, he really discussed the foundational elements from a platform perspective that SAP allowed BJ's to then put in place over the last 5 years. And his, I'll have to paraphrase because I don't want to do a direct quote, but he mentioned that 5 years worth of investments paid off in 90 days because we saw consumer behavior leapfrog 5 years into the future. So I think when you see retailers be really adaptive and nimble, you don't always see the planning and operationalization that is happening behind the scenes. And that's what technology allows us to do. And I would also say that SAP is such a core piece of your technology foundation, right? That you've got to start there. But I was really surprised, I guess I shouldn't have been, at what a front seat consumer experience took, right? So yes, you have to have those foundational elements in place, but then everybody was talking about how do you connect it? So whether it's knowing exactly where your delivery driver is with your groceries on a map, right? Getting updates via text. I mean, we saw people really pulling out all the stops and trying to communicate transparency through the customer experience, regardless of the channel that people were shopping.
You know, the other thing that I thought was really interesting, Kim, was, you know, grocery, right? So grocery has really pivoted, really changed. You know, not a lot of shopping online and picking up, you know, outside the grocery store or having your groceries delivered. And, you know, even, you know, I mean, not only did we see the grocery part of the business really escalate very quickly and move and lean into making sure that they were meeting those customer needs. But then you had baby boomers who really didn't even know how to shop online, right? So you've got this interesting dynamic of an older generation who doesn't really shop online. And let's face it, that's a big shopping cart. Those are a lot of items to go into a cart, right? And it can get very confusing. But, you know, you have a customer who was really able to pivot, go digital very quickly, fulfill those orders. Customers were happy, you know, and I do think we're going to continue to see baby boomers shopping online, which they hadn't done in the past. So, you know, I think we're going to continue to see the grocery side of the business really invest in that digital part of the business, which, you know, quite honestly, a lot of grocers were thinking about how does that fit in? And I think now they have a clear vision of that. And they'll be able to really innovate because they'll have that core system in place to be able to do it.
That goes back to the trust again, right? Like, you know, a year ago, 2 years ago, would we have trusted someone else to pick out our groceries and deliver them to our doorstep? So many things changed because consumer behavior was changing. We're talking a lot about the technology, but a lot of it goes back to how this pandemic impacted us as people and our reactions to things and our needs to connect in different ways.
Well, and I think that's typically what happens in technology, right? The consumer really within the past 10 years has really been pushing us as retailers, right? So I say us, but we're not the retailers anymore. But, you know, they really, the demand that the consumer has been putting on the brands that they interact with. And, you know, because the fact that there were some challenges with supply chain, we did see a lot of jumping around between brands, and we're going to see a lot of brand loyalty kind of shift because let's face it, if the item is not on the shelf, you're going to go for the one that is. And so really focusing on that supply chain and accessing the data to be sure that you are there when the customer wants it is going to be very important to continue to grow that share of wallet and lifetime value and all the things that are important when it comes to, you know, being a retailer and having consumers who are shopping with you.
I think one of the other things that changed a lot was whether or not you had disposable income to spend, right? And could, you know, try a different brand or, you know, you went to lesser brands. One of the things that I saw was having essential workers in my family was that it was especially tricky for them. And I know there was a SHRM session that talked about 54% of the people they surveyed said that their jobs were negatively impacted by this. And they've had so much more stress as a result of working under these conditions. You know, having to be there at work all the time, having to be exposed and wear a mask all day. And maybe people that came into your store didn't wear a mask, and things changing all the time, constantly, week by week for them was very stressful. And so I think that, you know, we're going to see some trouble with retail recruiting moving forward and retention. In some cases, I know some people I heard once they were, you know, given extra unemployment money, they didn't want to come back to work. And they used that opportunity to reinvent their lives or just stay home for a while. And so you see a lot of signs, at least I do up here in the Northeast, you see a lot of signs on the road of, you know, retail outlets hiring and looking for people, and they have bumped up wages.
You know, that kind of brings me back to the Walmart session again. You know, the CEO was talking about the fact that women are dropping out of the workforce. And, you know, my guess is because there's no daycare, right? There's no kids can't go to school. So, you know,
I mean, daycare year is hard enough for a retail person
Yeah.
because of the retail hours, right? And now you add on to the wrinkle that you have to homeschool now.
Exactly. Which, is way harder than anything else. So I hear that often from my sister, who has small kids. So, it's hard to get the kids focused. The other thing that has happened, in the industry, of course, we all know fashion suffered quite a bit, but the DIY world and really being able to add to your home and do maybe those things that you had waited on really did happen. Right? So people who were perhaps, I'll wait till a rainy day, or, I don't really need to make that change. I can live without it. Started to realize, oh no, I need to make that change. And so they rolled up their sleeves and they did things that they probably wouldn't have done. And so we certainly saw, the DIY big box retailers doing very, very well. I know from my perspective, we have a joint customer that, it was really all about, with them, it's that digital transformation. It was a very large transformation. Although it started with, finance and running the finance part of the house, but the analytics and the real-time analytics was really important. So, they really did very well because of the fact that they had the inventory to sell, and they really focused on what the customer was looking for. And so therefore we saw, great results from some of those out there from a quarterly standpoint and how well they did. Not only did they increase from, an online business, but their stores still did very well. So, I think that's a trend that's probably here to stay for a little while. I think we're going to see people really focusing on their homes and really making sure that, their home office is really comfortable and has the best furniture, and, their Netflix area, the area they watch Netflix is going to be, top notch, and all those types of things. So, their yards will be, there'll be a pool, or there'll be some sort of sitting area or something like that. So I think we're going to see a lot of that continue.
I painted.
I did too. But I did add to my I added a patio and a fence, and so I was one of the people. I said, yeah, let me, I'm going to be home, so let's make it comfy, So.
Well, Robin, you talk about having visibility, right, to using data, and I can't think of a better application out there than CAR, right, and the applications within the CAR stack that SAP offers. And we've seen firsthand, right? So when I was in industry and implemented CAR, we were so excited to be able to know where to put seasonal items, right? So you think about if you're in Florida and there's a hurricane, or you're in the Northeast and there's a snowstorm, right? Where do you put the last of your shovel inventory? Where do you put the generators? And this pandemic was not so much a finite, it's become more of an infinite game, right? But CAR serves the same purposes. The access to real-time sales and inventory information leads to quicker and better decisions, right? I mean, I think retail is always, if you've been a buyer, I think you'll always say it's a blend of art and science.
Absolutely.
The science has just gotten a bit more sophisticated, right? So CAR gives you that access, and not only to sales and inventory, but if you use promotional management and you have a C4C, right now, you have a full 360 view of what your customers are buying, where they're buying it, how they're buying it. And in the end, you can use that data to drive a better, more personalized customer experience. And at the end of the day, I think that is really going to be a key differentiator. People who use their data to improve their experience versus those who maybe are stuck and don't exactly know how to turn data into insights and eventually outcomes, right? I really do believe that better use of data and higher quality data is going to be a real differentiator for some retailers.
Yeah, so I would say, especially for global, so right now there are stores for some of our customers that are closed overseas, right? Because there's lockdowns going on, and so do they go in and access card and look at that data and move it on regions? Do they keep it there? You know, and of course, their ability to and maybe if we open in a week, we should leave the inventory out, we should move it on. And then of course, there's always the piece that you're going to use your stores as a place to ship from. You want to make a store that's close, right? So that you can use your costs. You certainly don't want to fulfill an order that's, in 5 different business, and it'll be just too expensive and it cuts into your margin. So I think sophisticated access to that data in real time allows you to
Hi, Robin. I think we got a bad connection there. Hopefully, yeah. I know you were making a great point, but hopefully we can get you back on. Yeah. So, Kimberly, while it's just us here, like she was talking about having that connection to the data, and do you have some thoughts on that? Maybe piggyback off what she was saying, what we were able to hear.
Yeah, sure. So I don't know exactly what she was saying, but I just do know that this is an area retailers have started to collect lots and lots of data. And I think that some of the tools that we help our clients implement assist them in better understanding what data they have, how to use it effectively, right? To make better decisions. I mean, the core tenets of retail haven't changed, right? Right product, right place, right time, right price. I mean, I don't want to say it's as simple as that. It's easy said, hard done, I guess, is what I would say. So it was really exciting, though, to hear over and over after session. I mean, you're talking about things from a consumer that answer questions on consumer behavior, safety, and so one example I would have is touchless transactions, right? Lots of retailers didn't have tap technology at their POS systems. We saw a huge rush to enable that functionality in POS. And I think we're going to continue to see it. So I think safety protocols, as Sherry talked about, right? How do we use and track data to help ensure adherence to safety protocols, right? Transparency and getting the message out there. And then I think data in the supply chain is going to be really, really important, right? We saw our supply chains really taxed. I think a lot of people who shopped in grocery went into the physical store, saw empty paper aisles, right? And empty meat shelves, right? The protein market was very, that supply chain was very stressed. You can only raise livestock so fast, right? It's not an infinite resource. So data really does help to shore up a lot of these processes. And at the end, it all drives a better experience on the front end for our members. So that's why I think harnessing data is going to become more and more of the great equalizer. People that do it well, we're going to see really do much better. And I also think it's even true for retailers that don't have brick and mortar, right? Those direct consumer businesses. We're seeing a lot of clients want to improve their systems, their visibility, their tracking. You know, I think about final mile and general merchandise. That's super important. You know, people don't want to know that something left, get a notice, hey, your item's been shipped, and then you lose visibility to it for weeks on end. That's not a great member experience. So we've got to make sure that everything really has, I think, the employee and the customer in mind.
Of course. Robin, how are we doing?
Can you hear me?
Try again. Sorry, this is live.
No worries.
I know there's a storm on the East Coast, and I know that's knocked Sherry out.
Okay.
Try again, Robin, one more time.
So Yeah, can you hear me
Go ahead.
now?
There you go. Yeah,
Okay.
there we go.
So I'll shift gears a little bit. So I was part of putting together our big idea session with Smart, and came out of retail.
Okay, we lost Robin again. This is proof that this is actually live. It's not recorded. But yeah, so yeah, weather, everything can have an issue. Talking about supply chain, our little supply chain right here is being impacted by the weather. So I know that Robin was going to talk about her session with PetSmart. So that was really interesting. Talking about we were talking earlier about having to the recruiting struggles that maybe retail is having right now. But what PetSmart is doing, they're working with the Terry J. Lundgren Center for Retail at the University of Arizona to kind of reach out to college students, get them working with them while they're still in college, getting that experience, giving them, legitimate projects to work on. We saw them working with merchandise and working working on rolling projects. We saw a student who was in IT. He got to work on a bunch of different things. We saw another student who was more on the merchandising front end side. And I know we talked obviously with Robin about this before, but talking about these, you get those college kids in, and you have maybe an employee for life. If they're getting all this experience, you'll feel some loyalty, and that's kind of another way to tap in. And also, Kim, I know she talked about kind of that different point of view that a college student can offer.
It was such a great session. It's, I guess maybe people that work in retail might know this statistic, but a quarter of all Americans work in retail in some form or fashion. So what I know is that regardless of when you start in retail, there's an opportunity for a long and successful career. And we have many, many people who begin in the retail industry, often in high school, stocking shelves, working at checkout, and really work their way up. So it's great to see students who are developing a passion for retail early. And I really liked what the PetSmart program is about, because what they said in that session was that when you work in retail, you're an insider. But these students and these young professionals who are coming into PetSmart are still the consumer. They're not part of the insider club, right? So I think what they talked about was the fact that these students and young professionals bring new ideas about what's important to them, what resonates with them, and that many of those ideas make it to market and are quite successful. So I'm looking forward to seeing some of those ideas. It sounds like PetSmart's going to have a year full of innovation that we should be watching out for sure. And I also should add this. I like that they provided some insights if you're looking to start a program with a local university or college, which was be a partner, right? Don't just show up to the job fair. As retailers, we've got to really lean in and invest in the partnerships, in the talent pipeline to really find the right talent. So to get, you have to give. And I thought that was a great message.
Yeah. It's it obviously in these times, companies have to be creative, and companies that have been set up with something, either technology or a program like this, kind of were able to adapt to 2020 a little better, I think. One thing I also wanted to touch on, another SAP session, was their session with the economist and the customer as well.
Great session.
Great session, of course. Yeah, it was a very, very informational. One thing they touched on, and I know that Robin discussed earlier kind of the baby boomers shopping culture trends changing. They say, that they were the highest growth market in terms of online shopping, and then you also had the Gen X also took a bump up. One thing I'm curious about is do we expect that to continue, and are consumers now used to
Sherry, can you hear me?
appointment setting? And yeah, I think we can hear you, Robin. So are consumers used to this appointment setting and used to this pickup and curbside and all this stuff? Kim, do you see that as something that's going to continue, or are we going to go back the old ways, or is it somewhere in between?
Yeah, I think it's probably somewhere in between, right? I think we'll see a little bit of a backslide, but who knows when that will come? I think there's still so much unknown. I think in retail, you used to think a year, 3 years, 5 years as long term. Now we're thinking 1 month, 3 months, 6 months as long term. So who's really to say? But I think the data shows in the research that SAP partnered on with The Economist is that, yes, we've seen an increase. We will see some boomers really adapt to it and hold on to it, and I think not go back. But I do think we'll backslide a little bit. The research found that boomers and Gen Xers really enjoy the immediate gratification of the tactile shop and then taking something home immediately, right? And so there's a bit of a delayed sense of gratification when shopping online. So, but then I think it spikes, right? Like you get the notification that UPS is right outside your door, FedEx truck is coming, DHL, all our great carriers. They too are unsung heroes. We can't forget about all of our supply chain and our delivery arm, right? So, yeah, I think that the Gen Z, millennials, they're more used to that. They've really all they've ever known. So, yeah, I think we'll backslide in some with some generational cohorts, but I think with the others, there'll be some staying power there.
But I think as a kind of a final thing to discuss, since we are we are the technology firm here, we got to talk about the technology, and we saw customers at various levels of kind of technology adoption having to adapt. But how did 2020 kind of accelerate the adoption of technology, and how will that set up sort of this omni-channel environment that we've been stressing for years?
Yeah, I think the thing to note is that if you have a seamless experience as a consumer on the front end, so let's talk about an example. You see, maybe you're looking online, your favorite retailer, you're browsing, you're putting things in your cart, and you see a new product. You might not be so sure and want to buy it right then, but it may trigger you the next time you're in the store to find where that is. So retailers, for example, who can tell you what aisle that product is in when you go to your store, you can then touch it, feel it, maybe purchase it. You purchase it, you bring it home, then your repurchase will be online. I think that's a very likely scenario. And I think the inverse might be true, right? You might see it in store and go, oh, that's pretty neat, and then order it online. So I think if we want to meet and hopefully exceed customer expectations, it's going to be about that seamless experience, but there's a lot of technology that goes into the back end, right? Having visibility to your inventory and your product, be location specific, right? We also need to make sure that we understand the inventory so that we're not showing stock available online. We need to preserve stock in store to make that an enjoyable experience so we can't wipe ourselves out. There's lots of considerations, and omnichannel is a complicated strategy. To do it well requires really top-notch technology on the back end.
Yeah, and of course, and then you bring in the HR, HCM side. We talked about success factors, ensuring you have the right people in place for these, this kind of new era, like you said, having the people throughout the supply chain maybe doing different things that they weren't doing before. So Sherry, I don't know if your connection is good. Oh, we got Robin back. So yeah, I think you're both. That storm is impacting our connection here, but I'll wrap it up here. I want to thank Robin for coming on with us. It's a bummer about the storm and the connection there, but yeah, nobody's perfect. I appreciate everyone's patience, but yeah. So thank you, Kim. Thank you, Sherry, who's out there as well somewhere. I appreciate all your insights, and we look forward to. I know that they're hoping for another show in the summer as well. We'll see how everything's going by then. Hopefully, we can maybe see some people in person at some point.
We're going to stay optimistic, Craig.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'd love to reconnect with people face to face. Yeah.
Yes, especially in retail. If you're in retail, you like people to see people face to face.
Absolutely.
So yeah, thank you everyone for watching. We have some links down below: the SAP Economist Survey, Robin's podcasts, which I encourage you to go check those out. She did some great daily recaps with a couple of her teammates there at SAP. Go ahead and check those out. And we'll have some more coverage on our blog about NRF coming up as well. And thank you, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Greg.